ever wondered why sometimes your computer might stop working? Or that certain applications aren't opening the right way? Have you ever thought about what kinds of ways you can try to get that to work? Because I know it can be frustrating sometimes when your headphones start disconnecting, apps aren't loading, you can't get certain things to open, you're losing documents on your desktop, the computer might just all around be sluggish. On today's Thursday Tech Tips, we're going to be talking about restarting your computer and how that is the one surefire way to be able to get things back up and running on your desktop. We also will be talking about today, when using your Mac, how often you should be restarting, why it's not as frequently needed, as well as when is the best time to do that, and how to easily make sure that it's being restarted the right way. So stay tuned for today's Thursday Tech Tips, where we're going to be going over all that. Welcome back to Facepalm Studio, everybody. So today's video, we are going to be talking about rebooting and when is the best time to restart your computer. A lot of people don't expect things like a restart to fix problems on your desktop, which is surprising to me because as long as I've been working with computers and in IT and working with all these kinds of different software packages and things that I've been working with across 3D, IT, just the company that I work for, we use a lot of different software that sometimes a restart fixes a lot of problems with Windows. Now, I'm a newer Mac user, but I've noticed that I don't have to restart my Mac nearly as often as I do my Windows desktop. But I know why though. There are a lot of software processes that run differently between Mac and Windows, and we're going to be going over some of that today. As well as just some general things to try and things to check to know when is a good way to tell when it's time for a restart for your computer. So I hope you guys are ready, and let's get right into it. Here we are at the desktop. This is the first surefire way to know when you're expected to see something not right. You're going to be turning your computer on after being shut down for the night. You're going to notice things aren't loading up properly, and you're just all experiencing all-around slowness. Now, in my case, I just recently restarted my computer. I think I just did it earlier before starting recording. That's just my process. I actually restart my computer probably 2 to 3 times a day, depending on what workload I'm doing and what it is I'm trying to accomplish. So, for example, when I'm recording or editing videos, I try to restart before I start my session and after, so that way I have a clean slate and any extra cached files that are in the background get converted and changed over, so that way I have room to wiggle with performance. Same thing goes for 3D modeling. With certain software packages, if you don't reboot every so often, your computer is going to be needing a lot more processing data than what it's actually given because other applications are taking that data up. So let's take a look at that a little bit here. So this is Windows 11, by the way. I've upgraded up to Windows 11, but the same thing still goes for Windows 10 users. So one of my favorite shortcuts that I like to do is with my mouse here. You guys should be able to see my mouse. Yes, with my mouse here, I'm going to go ahead and right click on my Windows logo. Now, this brings up a little hot menu, and it's super easy to get to. This is one of my main ways to be able to get to a lot of things that I need to see on my desktop. Or rather, a lot of the different things that I need to see menu-wise while working on my computer. And the thing we're looking at today is going to be Task Manager. So once this loads up, we already can tell that I have certain processes running in the background. I'm running OBS. It's taking up a lot of my RAM. It's taking up a lot of my CPU data. It's writing to the disk, as expected. I also have an EPO cam service. That's my webcam that I'm using right now because my cam link stopped working. Tune in for Facepalm Friday to learn a little bit more about that. I'm running Audition in the background. So my computer is running certain packages. Now, as you go though, what we really want to be looking at is this performance tab. So if you feel like your computer is starting to get sluggish on you, this is the kind of place to kind of start looking at this. And the best way to look at that is the performance tab. So when we come over here, I was doing some internet tests before. When we come over here, I am going to be looking at my CPU first. So you guys can see here, my CPU is working really hard. I'm actively recording. I'm using this workstation to record and edit off of. So I'm seeing a lot more of this data all real time. You can see that I have about 6 active cores that are working right now to try to produce this content. When I look down over here though, this is the big menu that I'm looking for, this up timer. Now, what this uptimer is telling me is how long that my system has been on for. In the field that I currently work in, I have certain people who will have their laptops on for over 30 days or more without a restart. This timer restarts every time you restart your computer. That basically shows that the lower the time on their system, the less time the computer has been on for, so things have time to boot up and work as a fresh session. The longer that timer is, though, I think the highest timer that I've seen at my current position has been 300 days. I have no idea how this user's laptop didn't stop working on them beforehand. I'm baffled still to this day about it. When you have a high uptime on your computer is where you're going to start seeing some memory issues. You're going to start seeing problems with your desktop. You're going to have problems with apps not launching. And it can cause some serious problems while you're working on that. So if we're taking a closer look at this here, one big thing is it clears your CPU out. Your CPU does have an internal memory, small, but it records and it keeps certain data there that then gets stored over into RAM, which is your memory. So right now I am using 15 gigabytes out of my 32 gigs of RAM that are built into this computer. Now, that goes across my entire system. So any Chrome tab I have open is going to use RAM. Any kind of application process that I'm running is going to use RAM. So for example, OBS is using quite a bit of RAM right now. Any sort of process that's in the background is going to be stored in RAM, so it's easier to bring up. So for example, when I'm working in Google Chrome, I have quite a few tabs open here that are all stored and they get brought up every time I launch my system. Now, I have a lot of extra RAM to spare right now because I have extra in my system. However, Chrome eats up a ton of RAM, as much as 4 gigabytes. So if you only have an 8 gigabyte, 12 gigabyte computer of RAM storage, it's going to be eating up a lot of data if you leave a lot of tabs open. So one good thing that a restart does is it allows your system to clear some of that cache data out. It lets some of those system processes get taken away, so that way when you start back up with a fresh session, it's like a deep breath. Your computer can finally breathe from being stored all this extra data for a little while. And it helps. It really does help. You'd be surprised about how well a restart can do to help fix certain things. For example, I was working with somebody who could not get any of their icons on their desktop to load the right way. You see here how my two icons right here, these are two games that I just don't have the shortcut logo down for. However, my user who I was working with, their entire desktop was all these blank page icons. I look in their CPU and task manager, their uptime was 100 days. We rebooted the computer, every single one of their icons, all their documents, everything was able to show back up, just like normal. And that's only one of the little things, that's one of the small things that it does for you. Flushes the memory, and your desktop uses some of that RAM to bring things back. One of the things too is it also corrects software glitches. If you're working in a lot of different software packages, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, certain glitches can occur, and sometimes it can be a fatal error, or something happens with your computer where it just needs to just have a general restart. When you restart, it lets your system correct those glitches. It runs driver updates in the background. You'll see general Windows updates happen. I had a user whose computer had not been updated since 1809, and their laptop, here, let me just see here, Windows 1809, I believe that was 2018. So their laptop hadn't been updated since 2018 to the newer versions of Windows. And it was still running okay, but it was not running well. That's to say the least. So one of the big things that I always recommend for my users is to reboot at least once a week, because it does speed up performance generally because you're clearing a lot of that back-end data. Apps are going to start launching better. You're going to see better performance with your web browsers. It can also solve issues with Wi-Fi connectivity and Bluetooth. If you seem like you're dropping connection with your headphones or your wireless mice, those things will be able to connect a little bit better. It'll save you time. Your system, once it does a fresh reboot, will be able to have a cleaner startup period. So things will start to launch faster. You'll be able to open Chrome up easier. You'll be able to get back to YouTube to be able to subscribe to Facepalm Studio down below. You'll be able to follow and like and do all that fun stuff. But it also helps just fix with like a lot of just general issues that you're seeing with your computer. Now, the flip side of that is you shouldn't restart all of the time. Your computer still needs to run a general system update, and your system should be on for a considerable amount of time before that happens. So say, for example, like I said at the beginning of this, I reboot once or twice a day. It's because my RAM fills up, certain things on my system are taking a lot of data, so I try to restart as frequently as I can, but not overdoing it. If I know that the processes that I'm doing on my computer, like if I'm just browsing on the web, I'm not going to need to restart every time I'm on my computer. Now, if I'm playing a AAA horror game and then jumping over to editing Facepalm Studio videos to recording and streaming on Twitch, my Twitch stream might fail, or my editing processes might crash, or my 3D model might not render the right way, and a restart can solve a lot of those problems. If you are a Mac OS user, your computer is threaded a little bit differently than how Windows processes work, and they are optimized to be able to stay longer for longer periods of time. They have a little bit better power efficiency. Now, granted, I'm going to be speaking on the behalf of the MacBook Pro that I'm using. I have not personally used one of the regular Mac Studios or one of the Mac desktops in a very long time, so I don't quite remember how well their performance is, but I know things are very similar with those. Long story short for that, your Mac can stay on for a lot longer than expected. For example, I had just recently gotten my Mac. I think I've had it for about a month now. And the first week of me playing with it and trying to figure out how to optimize workflow between going from Windows to Mac and back and forth, I found that there are a lot of weird nuances with the computer, and one of those was restarting. I restarted about 3 times one of the days that I was first working with stuff because all the different things I was trying was bogging things up. And so I rebooted. And I was talking to my girlfriend, and she goes, "Why are you restarting your computer so much?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Well, it's not going to need it as much. You just force quit the application." And it's kind of like a menu like Task Manager. I'm going to put a little screen grab of what it looks like here. But it doesn't do the same thing as Task Manager because it just quits the application. It's kind of like if you're swiping an app out on your phone. Now, when we were talking about that, I did a little bit of research into it, and it turns out that how the Mac handles application processes, it tones things way down when it's not in use. So when you put the computer to sleep, or if you close the lid, it puts it into like that clamshell mode that's like low hibernation state. So things aren't running as much in the background. However, you still want to be careful about leaving the computer on for too long. I restart my Mac probably once every 2 weeks. I'm not doing as many heavy tasks on it right now. I'm not doing as much rendering or 3D modeling on it. I have been doing a little bit of video editing here and there just to kind of test things between the computers. But I wanted to test and see how well the computer would perform, and I've seen little to no process differences between the two when I'm restarting on that computer. A restart basically for the Mac is just to help with doing general software updates. If you have a system update for Mac OS like Monterey, or if you're trying to upgrade to the new Catalina. No, Catalina's the old one. What's the new one? If you're trying to upgrade to Mac OS Ventura, those require a restart. Certain application installs require a restart. For example, I just installed NordVPN on my MacBook, and it required it to restart because it was configuring those plugins. Now, not to say that there's anything wrong with shutting down your computers either. For example, for Windows users, shutting your computer down is perfectly fine. It's basically putting your computer to bed for the night. Same thing goes for the Mac. You just close the lid. It's already sleeping. It's perfect. But that restart for Windows is basically the cure-all. If you can't get something to work right away, the first troubleshooting step, number 1, should be to restart your computer. After that, that's when you start breaking down into some of the other troubleshooting steps that we'll try to go over more on these Tech Thursdays, as well as on i2 Tuesday, to try to break things up a little bit more, to try to explain how those processes actually work when you're trying to get your system back up and running. All right, so if you are a Windows user and you have not restarted your computer in a while, that's okay. I'm going to show you guys a few different ways that you can go about restarting your Windows computer, so that way you can start utilizing these tools and tips that I'm giving you today to be able to get this working. So Here I am back on my desktop. I'm going to come over down here. I'm going to left click down at my start button. And I'm going to come over here to where my power button is, just to the right of my logo. If you're on Windows 10 still, it will be in the bottom left-hand corner. It'll be a power button right here. You can still hit the same options. You're going to hit power, and then you'll hit restart. That will actually restart the computer. It'll bring it right back up, and you'll be able to sign back in. Now, that also depends on your hard drives and that kind of stuff, but we'll go over that in a different video about speeds for rebooting and things coming back up like that. You still have your regular sleep options and your shutdown that way as well. How I like restarting my computer is if you hit the Windows key on your keyboard and X at the same time, it's going to bring up that same menu that I right-clicked over here for. So you can also right-click on the Windows button. You can also come here and then just go right down to restart from there. If you use the shortcuts though, Windows X, it does then give you the option to be able to manually select it with the keyboard. So then if you press U, and then R, that will let you go ahead and restart that way as well. I tend to do that when I'm in a rush. I will use the hotkeys just because it's faster for me. But sometimes I'll just come over here, right click, shut down, and restart. And this also gives you the sign out option too. If you have multiple users that are using your computer, that also gives you that sign out option. Okay guys, so here I am on my MacBook, and I'm just going to go over really quick about how to also restart on the Mac. Even though you may not be doing it nearly as often, it is something that you should do periodically, like I said. Okay guys, so we are going to now show you how to restart on the Mac. I am working on the Mac right now, I am recording, so let's go ahead and go through this. So if you're going to come over here, I am looking at my desktop on the Mac. And there's a few different ways you can go, but the main easiest way to do this is by going up to the Apple logo. You're going to come down. Oh, you can see here, I already have an update ready. So that might be something I'm going to need to do. That will require a restart. You're going to come down here from the Apple logo, restart. Just that easy. And this pop-up will come up saying if you do nothing, it'll restart automatically in 50 seconds. And it will reopen the windows that you had open when you log back in, which is really nice for the restart, because on Windows, you still have to relaunch some of your applications. There are ways to be able to assign things to open, but on the Mac, it will automatically remember what you previously had open and bring those back up. In my case, I am going to cancel this because I am currently recording, and that would be bad. So, but that's it. That's the basics for restarting your computer on Mac and on Windows. Yeah, that's the basics. Alrighty, everybody. I think that's going to be it for today's Tech Thursday. Thank you guys for coming out. I know we didn't have anything on Tuesday this week. I do apologize. Hopefully we will be able to have something on next Tuesday. I have a few ideas already planned out, as well as for another Make It Monday already. We're going to be going over some 3D modeling tips, as well as some cool rendering tips if I can get them working. I was having a little trouble doing that earlier, so we're going to test a few things. And make sure you guys check out tomorrow's Facepalm Friday. I'm sure it's going to be lovely. I have to still record that video, but it's going to be nice regardless. But thank you guys again for enjoying today's Facepalm Studio video. And I just want to hope that you guys were able to save yourself a little bit of time, and that this helps prevent some of those facepalm moments. But until next time, guys, everybody keep creating, save the pain, and I'll see you guys on the next video.